What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Star Wars Rebels Season 2, Part 1. So yeah, after watching halfway through the season, I did actually look to see, and there was a break in between episodes 11 and 12. And honestly, it is a pretty good kind of like halfway point where it feels like we've gotten a little bit of growth. We've seen the bad guys, we've gotten to know the, what is it, fifth brother and seventh sister, I think, Inquisitors. And we've also gotten to see our characters learn a bit more about themselves, got introduced to some other characters coming in. So, yeah, overall, pretty solid half of the season. I'm not going to necessarily tackle it episode by episode. The two I think that stood out to me the most, one, ironically, it was the least plot heavy, but for some reason it was the most fun this season, and that was the Hondo episode. And maybe it's just because Hondo is a great character and Jim Cummings is a fantastic voice actor. But man, that episode just made me laugh so many times. And again, the setup up for it, everything that happened, really not a whole lot did happen in that episode. And I'm not a big fan of the storyline where you got the young kid on the team who feels like, I just don't know if I want to do this anymore, and he's basically pouting because he feels like I don't know, it almost feels like he thinks he's too good for all of this, like he doesn't want to do it. And it's not necessarily that, it's just more so I think because of how things changed from season 1 to season 2, it would kind of be a lot for a kid as young as he is, because I think he's like 14 or 15. So it would be a lot to suddenly go from, yeah, we're just this team and we're just going around helping people, and all of a sudden now you're fighting in a war, and you're being trained to be a Jedi, but also to be a soldier. It would be a lot for a kid. It's just because obviously I'm a bit older, I don't really relate to that story, so I see it more as kind of a spoiled little brat, honestly. But again, I know that's just from my point of view. If a kid's watching this, they're probably watching that story and thinking, wow, that would be a lot. That would suck. So, but again, it ended up leading to a rather fun episode where it was kind of silly, but Hondo is just so entertaining, and it was good to see him in the show. He had some great one-liners as well. There was the one, it was, oh, the stories I would tell, and some of them would be true. Just, or whatever the one guy, I don't even remember his name, but the fat guy that Hera got traded to in the first season by Lando. He just said something about him being an old relic. His response was, hey, let's not bring your wife into this. Just perfect. But yeah, so that episode, not very plot heavy, but a lot of fun. And then the episode where we do get introduced to the new Inquisitors. Very intense and very well paced, in my opinion. It's one where it's only just Ezra, Sabine, Zeb, not Keb, as I think I was calling him in the first review, and Chopper. They're the only four there. They're just scouting this ship. It was a little weird that apparently the seventh sister was already on the ship, and then they turn on the power, and then all of a sudden that's when the fifth brother is like, yes, they're definitely there. And it's like, well, of course you already knew they were there because your sister's already on that ship and she probably communicated that to you, right? Why did he say it as if he sensed them there? I don't know. It seemed a little odd that he said it that way, only to find out later that another Inquisitor is already on the ship. But no, just the setup for it, it was very intense. It was very close quarters. And because, you got two, not necessarily Sith, but two people that are strong, at least in the dark side of the Force, with lightsabers, up against one kid who's still learning how to use the Force a little bit. He's still not great with it, but he's okay. And while Zeb and Sabine are solid fighters, they're not. They don't know how to use the Force. So when they go up against that, it's not easy. And then Chopper, who, yes, obviously he's a very good little droid and he can handle himself, but that team is not the strongest to go up against two Inquisitors. You don't have the Jedi Knight. Wow, my brain is gone. Kanan. I'm losing names right now. They're just kind of falling out of my head because it's really late. But yeah, so very good setup in that episode, and it was a lot of fun. And honestly, the way they get out of there, it feels believable. And I feel like that's something that this show has done pretty well. Obviously, there are some moments where it's just kind of funny, like they're running away from like 10 stormtroopers that are all missing them, even though they're right ahead of them. So there are some times when it does feel a little unbelievable that they would get out of a situation, but there are some times where it really does feel like it's sort of luck of the draw and they just sort of escape. They don't really win the day. Like at the beginning of the season with Vader. Like that was not a we won, that was a we got away. And I kind of like that feeling because it adds something a little different from what I remember from the Clone Wars. And since this is kind of a continuation from the Clone Wars, it's a bit different. And I like that feeling. I like the feeling that there's a bit more thought and intent put into this show that really shows that we're moving somewhere, but it's not easy. There's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of barely moments, and that's kind of adds to the intensity, and that's something that a lot of kids shows, they don't have that sort of intensity to it. They don't have that feeling of like your chest is tightening because you're like, are they gonna make it out of this one alive? And obviously, looking at it from an adult's eyes, I can look at this show and say, yeah, probably we're not gonna lose any of our main characters more than likely. If we do, it probably won't be until the last season more than likely, because it's a kids show still at the end of the day. So they will show some people, like what's her name, the minister Tua, I think, the minister of Lothal. They did show her dying, but that's a side character that we did get to know pretty well. And yes, she was kind of trying to do turncoat, but it's not one of our main characters that's gonna die. Because I just don't feel like they would do that in a kids show this early on. So, but yeah, all in all, I did enjoy this first half of the season. Kind of going piece by piece again, like I did the first review. Ezra, I feel like he's grown a little bit more. Obviously, we're seeing in this final episode of the first half of the season, he's really growing with his powers, and a lot of that does come from a place of not necessarily anger, but it almost feels like when he really wants something, like at the end when he feels like he's going to try to find his parents and he sees what's blocking him, that's when his force abilities really start to show just how good he can be. So it's showing that he's growing in his abilities, but it's still being held back by the fact that, he's still a kid. He's still got a lot to learn. He's still got a lot to grow from. And I'm glad that they're showing that he's not just, okay, we got some training in, and now all of a sudden he's fantastic. Because there would be a bit of a growth period. And I do like the fact that now he is getting training from two different mindsets. Because they're showing how that can help him at times, but also how it can lead to a lot of conflict and a lot of one teacher is trying to show him, hey, you need to be balanced, you need to be disciplined in the force, and the other one's saying, hey, but sometimes you have to use your brain and not just, rely on, oh yes, belief. Sometimes you actually have to think for yourself as well. It's kind of the two conflicting back and forth thought processes when it comes to most of the things in life. And that's kind of, when it comes to the force, there is sort of a feeling that you could take it and apply it to a lot of different aspects of daily life, as far as what you put your faith in and what you really focus on and try to hone into. So yeah, really fun concept there with Ezra and how he's growing. With Kanan, we're still seeing, he's still showing a lot of that strength that we saw at the end of the first season, but he still has that sort of recklessness to him. We see he doesn't really want to be a part of this rebel alliance and resistance and all of this because he feels like he's done with the war. He did a lot of that stuff back during the Clone Wars, and he's like, I'm done. I don't want to do this again. I saw what happened at the end of that last one. I don't want to go through that. But Hera, on the other hand, she wants to help. She wants to be a part of it. She wants to fight back, and she sees this as her opportunity to. So it's interesting to see those two conflicting things. They're still not really shown as much of a romantic couple, and again, I think a lot of that comes down to it's more of a kid's show, so they're not going to be like, I'm thinking again, because there are similarities to Firefly, I'm like, my brain keeps going there. But the Zoe and Wash connection, we see how at times they were romantic with each other, but then at other times they were, good co-workers, teammates. I don't know really what to call them in a situation like that. But we got to see both sides of it, whereas because this is more of a kid's show, they're showing more how they work together as a team, as the pilot and then kind of the leader of the group. But I like the dynamic there, and I feel like they're showing both of them sort of growing in different ways. And I'm not sure if they're going to possibly start to grow in separate ways, because again, it does feel like one is leaning more toward let's go do our own thing, and the other one's like, no, let's be a part of this. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. We did get one episode with Hera, kind of more focused on her whenever she had to go get that ship, and that was nice. And Sabine's episode as well, where she got to go and we saw an old friend of hers who now is working for the Black Sun. It was nice to see a couple of more individualistic episodes for characters that were not Ezra or Kanan, because it did feel like those two got a lot of the focus in the first season. So I would like, hopefully we'll get to see something for Zeb, and who knows, maybe Chopper will find out something about his past in the second half of this season. But it's nice. I like to see more of the team getting focused on as the season progresses and as we get to know them more. And we do have a little bit more of the backstory of everybody, but I still would like to see, okay, well, how did these guys all come together? That would kind of be a fun episode if they decide to do that. So, Ahsoka, she has kind of been in and out of the team. It's weird to me, and some of this may just be because I haven't seen Clone Wars for a while. I thought she had found out about Anakin turning to the dark side. I thought she did, but now I'm not so sure. But she does feel Vader's presence at the beginning of the season. It seemed like she might have known what was going on. It seemed like she might have realized that Vader is Anakin, but it's hard to really tell. It does seem like she has some sort of suspicion about who Vader is, but for whatever reason, she's not willing to share that with the team. And I do feel like that's a little odd, and again, kind of showing the hypocrisy of the Jedi Order, that sometimes they'll keep stuff from other people because they think it's for their benefit. I don't know if that's what she's doing, or if she's just really not sure and she doesn't want to share until she knows for sure, because she doesn't want to, put false thoughts into their heads if it's not true. But yeah, it was cool to see her get to fight, though, the two Inquisitors. It was a good moment, and it was fun to see how good Ahsoka's gotten after all these years. The way she ended that battle by essentially just saying, you know what, let me turn these off, I don't even need these, and let me turn yours off too, you don't need this. It was fantastic, and I do hope we get more of her as the show progresses. I hope they don't decide to write her off and say, no, she's going to go fight this battle now. Rex as well, coming back into the show, was fun, and it was kind of a good couple episodes to see how different Jedi and how, honestly, some of the clone troopers processed what happened after Order 66. We do get to see, obviously, Kanan does not trust them, and while Rex, of course, saw everything that happened and realized, okay, yeah, I get it, I understand, we did have Wolf, who was like, no, I can't trust these people. And then Gregor, I guess, was just a little loopy. But yeah, it was nice to see that and sort of the aftermath of some of the clone troopers and what happened after the Empire decided to go more towards recruiting people to be stormtroopers. And having Rex on the show is just a fun addition because he's a good character. I think the guy that plays Rex as well, I don't remember his name now, but getting to see him back on the show and getting to hear his voice again and the quippy one-liners that he can have, it was really fun. And the one episode where he and Kanan had to disguise himself as stormtroopers was fantastic as well. The one scene that just stuck in my mind because of how hilarious it was talking about, he's shooting with the stormtrooper head on, and Kanan's like, yeah, hey, you fit right in. You shoot like the stormtroopers do. And then he takes off the helmet. It's a stupid helmet. And it just made me think, because I've seen memes of people talking about the eye holes in stormtroopers. They're not conducive for shooting, and that's why they miss so many of their shots. And he takes off the helmet and then instantly hits his target. And I'm like, well, maybe this show just proved that. And maybe that's where that meme came from. I will also say the fact that they tend to shoot whenever they're running, they're not like shooting like this, looking down the sights. They're shooting like from the hip, doing this motion. I'm like, yeah, no, you're not going to hit anybody shooting like that. Oh, man, the Stormtroopers missing everything lines, they do get me. So I'm glad we did have at least that one. I think that was the only one we had so far in the show. What else? The Inquisitors, both very intimidating. You know, you got the one, he is a little bit more of a meathead, so not as intimidating as the Seventh Sister. Which, by the way, so we have Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan. We now have Sarah Michelle Gellar as the Seventh Sister. So that's Fred and Daphne from the live-action Scooby-Doo movie in this show. So are we going to get everybody? Is like Linda Cardellini and Matthew Lillard and... I don't remember who voiced Scooby, and I don't think it was, what's his name? Frank Walker, I think, is his name. I don't think he voiced him for the live action, but I kind of want to go look it up now, but I'm going to wait and see and just be like, okay, did all of them show up at some point? But yeah, her voice sounded very familiar to me, and so when I looked it up, it was like, oh, that's why. But yeah, both of them, they do make a very interesting pairing where he does seem almost, it almost kind of feels like a Zeb and Sabine, you know, kind of team up in how they handle things, but they both are intimidating in their own ways. And honestly, the way she uses her drones and stuff to kind of keep track of everything, it's very, very good characters. And I feel like they're doing a good job of writing these characters, you know, writing the good guys to be not just 100% good guys. They each have their flaws, they each have their strengths, they work well off of some characters but not off of others, but then sometimes they manage to find a way out of that and, you know, a way to work with people that you didn't think they'd be able to work with. And then the villains are all also well written, you know. Callus is still involved, but you can tell he's starting to learn how these rebels work, and he's starting to figure out how the team kind of functions and what their next moves might be. And we're seeing how every little thing, every little possible thing, he's like, no, let's go look into it. You know, because some stormtroopers, some other leaders might say, that's probably just a glitch, or that's probably nothing. But he realizes, no, every little thing might possibly be these rebels. Let's go look into it. And I have to applaud the writers for making that decision, because that could sort of feel a little, especially for a kid show, it could feel very like, oh my gosh, like these guys can't win. But it does make for better villains, in my opinion, because it makes them more intimidating and it makes them more of a threat for especially the audience watching too. So I think that's about it for as far as like kind of individual characters. Storylines, you know, again, we had some more it's very late, individualistic storylines for, like I said, Hera, for Sabine. We did have, you know, Kanan kind of figuring out about his prejudice against the clone troopers, and kind of overcoming that with Rex being involved. Ezra, we do see at the end here with his parents, it does seem like they are actually dead, but they weren't until recently. So I don't know if that's going to be for sure, because the guy he was talking to at the end, whose name I do not remember, I'll try to for the next review, but he did say that they got separated. He didn't actually say how they died. He just said by then it was too late. And I'm like, what does that mean? Did like the place blow up and they were still inside, or did you just lose sight of them and then it blew up? But that means they could still be out there somewhere. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what happened with his parents. Like, how did they die in that prison escape? Like, what? Because we still didn't get that answer. We just got him saying, "Oh yes, no, they're dead for sure," and that's it. And I feel like until we see what happened, until we confirm how they died, there's still a slight chance that they're alive. At least that's how my comic book slash Star Wars slash anything anime, like anything like that. Until we see the body and until we confirm, yes, they are for sure dead. I'm always gonna think there's a chance that they're alive, and just this guy saying, yeah, they're dead, without telling us how or why or when or what. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's about it though. Overall, I am tired, so I might be forgetting some things. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a good start to the second season. It changes up some of the aspects of the show. It does make it feel like they're more on the run. They're working with the rebels. They're not just nearby at Lothal anymore. It's a little bit all over the place, and I kind of like that feeling that yeah, they're growing. They're not just the small little group of rebels on the outskirts. Now they are a part of a bigger group of rebels. They're still on the outskirts for the most part, but they are growing and they're starting to get more people on the team. And Ahsoka's more involved. They have Sato. Don't remember how to pronounce his name now, but they have him and they're sort of conversing with him. Trying to work with him and the bigger group of rebels that they have now to get supplies to more people and more, further away systems. So, yeah, it's a good upgrade, I think, on the first season. And the second half of the season, I assume will be more focused on, what the Inquisitors are trying to do with these kids that they introduced in the last couple episodes. Apparently trying to find other Force-sensitive children. I assume to raise more Inquisitors, more than likely. That's just my guess. I can't remember if they actually talked about. I will say, because it is so late, not all of the information was sticking. So, if they did say what the plan was with the kids, I missed it. But I assume it was to take these Force-sensitive children and raise them to either be Inquisitors, or if they don't comply, then just get rid of them. So that way they can't be Jedi. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens next. Whew. There's the yawn. It's been coming for a little while. That's what happens when you do late reviews. So, that's my final thoughts on the first half of season 2. So next up is the second half, and I will see you guys when I see you. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the first half of the second season of Star Wars Rebels? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe. Future Star Wars Rebels reviews. And I will see you guys after I get a good night's sleep, hopefully. Peace out.